Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Aleka Seville and I support BayREN on regional coordination and partnership building. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. All right, so thank you so much everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. And again, if you can just pop your name and your organization and your favorite thing about summer in the chat. We'll have that down because we don't have a chance to introduce everyone today. I do want to let you know we have a lot of information to get through. And so we will have time for questions at the end. We're going to do a Q&A. You'll have an opportunity to voice your questions. If you have a question that comes up as I'm talking, please feel free to pop that into the Q&A. So definitely don't put it in the chat. If you see next to the chat, there's a little Q&A box there. So if you can put your questions there, that'll be really helpful for us and we can kind of keep them all together and make sure we get to all of them. As a note as well, after this, we'll be posting a recording of the workshop along with these slides. So you'll have that for reference. And then you'll also have time to send additional questions to BayREN and through July 15th. And then we'll compile everything into an FAQ so that everyone can benefit from all your great questions. Okay. So this is what we're going to run through today. I'm going to have Jenny Berg kick us off with a welcome and BayREN overview. Then I'm going to run you guys through the pilot goals and benefits of participation. We're going to go over the participation criteria and the application process. Then I'm going to introduce our fantastic partners who are here with us today. And then we'll have that group Q&A. Again, we'll do it verbally and through the Q&A. And then we'll just do wrap up and next steps. So with that, I'm going to kick it off to Jenny. And Jenny, I'll just let me know when you want me to advance your slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We are so thrilled that you are here. Next slide, please, Aleka. So I just wanted to briefly talk a little bit about the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN. We are a coalition of the 9 Bay Area counties, and we partner to promote resource efficiency at the regional level, focusing on energy, water, and GHG reduction programs. We are funded through ratepayer dollars, and the California Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, approves both our programs as well as our budget. So we are one of 4 existing regional energy networks with a 5th application currently pending. And we, the BayREN vision, which really is applicable to all of the RENs, is that we support local action to help the state meet the aggressive climate goals. Through our unique regional approach, we leverage local government strengths, and that allows us to pilot new innovative approaches to benefit the entire region. Next slide, please. So last year, we completed a new organizational strategic plan and redefined equity to guide us with our program development. Our equity definition is that equity means addressing systemic barriers to energy efficiency and electrification, especially for and in collaboration with equity priority communities and those who disproportionately face energy burdens, climate impacts, and are underrepresented in policy and decision-making. This definition of equity really guided our thinking when we prepared our new business plan as directed by the Public Utilities Commission, which was filed just this past March and will cover program years 2024 through 2031. Next slide. On here, you will see in the blue our current portfolio of programs that we have, for the most part, been running in the region since 2013. We are working to evolve all of our programs, including our existing programs, to better advance equity throughout the region. The programs in the yellow and green boxes represent new offerings that we have proposed in the business plan. The Climate Careers Program is a new workforce program that works with low-income youth to provide training, internships, with the ultimate goal of finding good-paying jobs in the green economy. We have a refrigerant replacement program that focuses on very, very small food service locations. And then finally, two new public sector programs, integrated energy services, as well as our targeted decarbonization services program. If approved, all of the programs, but focusing specifically on the public sector programs, will provide services that are tailored to support community resilience centers. We decided to propose these offerings based on a significant amount of feedback from stakeholders that was really an interest of our local jurisdictions. Next slide. So what brings us here today is our new initiative, the Bay Area Resilient Libraries Network. This initiative will build on our existing offering through our Codes and Standards program, which is the Municipal ZNE and ZNC Technical Assistance that is tailored for buildings that local jurisdictions would like to develop into community resilience centers. And I should say that's what this is focused on. The goal is to develop a network of Bay Area libraries that can also function as community resilience centers. The lessons learned from this particular initiative will help inform our new public sector offering that we hope to be approved by the CPUC. Aleka? Aleka, I'm turning it back to you. Oh, there you are. You're on mute.
There we go. Sorry, guys, too many screens. All right, thanks, Jenny. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you guys through the pilot goals and benefits of participation. We'll see if I can not unmute myself again. All right. Here we go. So in addition to informing that new public sector program that Jenny mentioned, our other goals for this initiative are really essentially ensuring that energy efficiency and energy resilience is integrated into local adaptation planning. We also, again, want to create this network. We're hoping that it's something that could potentially continue past, November 2023 when this pilot wraps up. And then we also want to use this pilot to position participants and the region for future funding opportunities. So just as there are many definitions of resilience and resilience hubs, CRCs or community resilience centers also have many definitions. So we found this definition from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, USDN, helpful. And we're really looking to our initiative participants to further tailor this based on their own community needs and goals. I just want to note here too, we are using the term, we're often using the term Community Resilience Center or CRC. And that's because we found that this is what the state of California seems to be using more often. And we want to be just consistent with that for future funding opportunities. In all honesty, it's also a lot easier to shorten and to say CRC. So we're rolling with that. But when we do use that term CRC, we're also talking about what you might call a resilience hub. All right, so why libraries? So during our stakeholder engagement efforts late last year, as Jenny mentioned, we heard from local government staff that they want their CRCs to be community-led and that their locations need to be accessible and welcoming to diverse populations. And they also typically want CRCs to be, to provide resources year-round. So we chose to focus on libraries because our current funding enables us to provide this engineering technical assistance for municipal buildings. We also found that libraries often came up as key, community assets that are both welcoming and safe for diverse populations, and that also already provide valuable educational and other resources to local communities. We realize that libraries are not the ideal CRC site for all communities. And so, again, that new public sector program is really designed to provide the same type of support for any building type. It doesn't have to be municipal, but we're focused here on libraries to really figure out if we can provide some additional support for a certain type of building, and because they're often welcoming facilities for diverse populations. And then finally, I just feel like this quote does a good job of capturing how valuable and how well loved libraries are and why they might be a natural fit for some communities. So I want to walk you guys through the benefits of participation from our perspective. So again, we hope that this network will be helpful for everybody that joins it. You can share lessons learned, best practices, and hopefully that might continue past the pilot timeframe. We are working with our partners to provide access to community engagement facilitation support to ensure applicants develop community-driven goals for their CRCs. We're also, for BayREN, providing free engineering technical assistance and recommendations, and that's to identify energy upgrades to improve your library building's efficiency, resilience, and your ability to provide cooling and clean air services. And then finally, we're also working with ASAP, the American Society of Adaptation Professionals, one of our partners, to match participants with resilience funding and finance experts to help identify relevant funding sources to support your CRC and implement the recommended energy upgrades. So we didn't want participants to walk away just with a report of potential energy upgrades. We also wanted you to have some more tailored support and guidance for how to actually fund those upgrades once you have them in hand. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the criteria to participate and the application process. Again, as we're going, if questions come up, feel free to drop those in the Q&A, not the chat, and we can get to those when we get to the Q&A section. All right, so the pilot is open to Bay Area cities and counties. So BayREN, we expect to have approximately 10 funding to support approximately 10 Bay Area library sites to participate in the pilot. And just a quick note here, there is a footnote in the application that speaks to this as well, but BayREN serves cities and counties who are PG&E customers for electricity and or gas distribution. So an example of this in terms of eligibility, the city of Healdsburg and the city of Palo Alto have their own utilities, and those utilities provide both electricity and gas distribution. So therefore, those cities are not eligible to participate, but jurisdictions that purchase electricity through a CCA but are also, PG&E customers for their gas are eligible to participate. So open to Bay Area cities and counties that meet those criteria, which are the majority. And then within that, we need you to have a local government lead, and that person is going to be the primary point of contact for BayREN throughout the initiative. So that's November 2022 to November 2023. And so that needs to be a city or county staff member. And ideally, that person is going to be able to connect BayREN with the necessary energy use information about the library site to complete the assessment. So you don't have to be the one that knows that information, but you definitely need to be able to help us connect with the people who do, if that makes sense. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the CRC team. So while there is a local government lead, BayREN understands and knows that, that the best types of CRCs are the ones that are actually driven by community needs and community goals. And so what we want to do here is really encourage applicants to develop a CRC team of sorts. And these are some examples of the stakeholders that you might want to include on your team. So obviously, community members, representatives, residents, library staff at the library site, other library staff potentially that could be helpful, and then your county office of emergency services staff as well. So in terms of expected engagement, again, that local government lead is the primary point of contact for BayREN throughout the initiative. They're the only ones that are required to participate in the convenings in November 2022 and November 2023. That being said, if other members of your team want to participate, we would absolutely welcome that. So at minimum, we're really seeking applications from jurisdictions that have engaged and solicited input from relevant community stakeholders, which you guys are going to determine that. And then also your staff at the library site. That's pretty critical. So we want to make sure that staff at that site are well aware of what you're trying to do and on board. On the OES piece, so we really encourage you to engage with your county office of emergency services, but we understand that that can be tricky. It can be hard just based on the fact that there's lots of competing priorities and very little capacity. So if you try and do that and you're unable to do it before the deadline the application deadline in September 30th, if you're selected, BayREN can help you facilitate that conversation. So just know that that's in your back pocket. We understand that that can be difficult even with the amount of time we've given you. So we're happy to help you with that as we go forward, if you get selected. Okay, so equity priorities in frontline communities. So really, really key here is BayREN wants to support the development of CRCs that are going to serve communities who are most impacted by climate change and have the least resources to deal with those impacts. So we want you guys to tell us why you think this community, why you think your community, your library site needs a CRC. So we are looking to the Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Equity Priority Communities Framework for examples of demographic factors that identify communities most in need of CRCs. And that's really going to hopefully to be helpful for you. And then we're also looking to the American Society of Adaptation Professionals, ASAP's working definition. I love that it's a working definition. I think that's a great idea, but a working definition of frontline communities for guiding principles. And this is also really a framework to understand which communities would benefit most from BayREN's support to develop a community resilience center. So we're providing those frameworks really as a reference, but we want you to let us know why you think these communities need this CRC. So this is all in the application. The application includes more information on MTC's equity priority communities, but these are the demographic factors that make up that framework. And then similarly, so ASAP is a membership organization. You'll learn more about them later, but they worked with their members to develop this working definition of people and communities at the front lines of climate change. That's also referenced in the application, for your benefit. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about pilot selection criteria. We really tried to keep this as simple and straightforward as possible. So I hope that it's coming off that way. There are three main criteria that we're really looking for here. So the proposed CRC library site does not have any known physical ownership or operational barriers that would limit the implementation of recommended energy upgrades. We know that you guys can't confirm this by yourselves, but what we're trying to do is get an appropriate amount of information so that we can figure out whether there's any really blatant things that would prevent you from implementing these energy upgrades. Then we want to make sure that the CRC is going to serve local communities that are most impacted by climate change and have the least resources to deal with those impacts. Again, we're looking to you guys to tell us, why you think that this is needed in your community. And then finally, we want to make sure that the local government lead, the applicant, has demonstrated that you've actively engaged with relevant library staff and community stakeholders that understand and can represent the needs of those communities that the CRC is going to serve. So additional considerations. As I mentioned before, BayREN has limited funding to support, approximately 10 library sites for this pilot. So depending upon the number of applications, the BayREN Selection Committee, which is going to be made up of BayREN staff and consultants, the Selection Committee may also consider geographic diversity and the diversity and strength of partnerships for each of those applicants. And so that's really because BayREN, we're a regional organization, and we'd really like to build a geographically diverse network if possible, to ensure as many counties get the benefits of the participation as possible. And then in terms of the strong partnerships, we want to make sure that those CRC goals are community driven and that they're informed by local climate change impacts and existing emergency response capacity and resources. Okay, so this is the participant expectations and initiative timeline. So in November, again, the applications are going to be due at the end of September 30th, which is a Friday, by 5 p.m. In October, the BayREN Selection Committee will make their selections. And then in November, we'll have a kickoff with all the participants. From November to September, that's when our technical assistance team will work with participants to develop those site assessments. So to get all that building site information and to develop those recommendations. Then we're thinking January through October is really when we'll dig into the resilience funding and financing support and guidance with ASAP, with our partner. And then in November 2023, that's when we would have a final kind of wrap up convening for all of our participants to talk about all the great things that we've done and to share lessons learned. Okay, so I want to take you through now the application itself. Again, we really tried to make this as simple and straightforward as possible, but I'm excited to take your questions and make sure that this is clear. But this is really what it looks like. We're asking for that local government lead contact information at the beginning. That's where you would list your CRC team members as well. This section 1 is that library site information. Sections 2 and 3 talk about project need and engagement and support. And that's those narrative questions. And then you're also, you're welcome to provide optional letters of support from your community stakeholders, from other relevant stakeholders. It's not required, but that is totally optional. And you can just email that in along with your application. Okay, so let's go through really quickly the site, the sections here. So the section 1 is the library site information. So what are we asking for here? Is that first and foremost, it's building information. And that really looks like the location, obviously, of your library site, how old the building is, the square footage, the hours that it runs right now, the hours of operation, and services that your library provides, and the ownership. So this is where we're really trying to uncover, make sure there's not any sort of ownership barriers, meaning that whoever owns the building, if it's not the local jurisdiction, or even if it is the local jurisdiction, that the owners are on board and that they're potentially open to implementing some of the energy upgrade recommendations that you're going to get as a participant in the pilot. So community needs assessment, what is this? So I know we have some library staff on the line right now, but our understanding is that libraries, most of them should have a community needs assessment. That being said, like many plans, these will be varied. They may not be super recent, and they may not be relevant to this pilot. However, we are really encouraging applicants to check in with your library staff and see if they have this document, if they do, what it looks like, because it could contain information that would be helpful as you try and seek to figure out, what those community needs are. So again, not required, but you should definitely review it if it's available. And then finally, an estimate of the annual energy use and other energy information of the building. So this could look like building features and audits. So does it already have solar? Does it already have battery backup? Have there been any recent energy upgrades that we should know about? So again, really just trying to make sure that the site is a good candidate for energy upgrade recommendations. And I'll note here, we're also, of course, given BayREN's mission, we're looking for sites that would benefit most from energy upgrades to reduce GHG emissions and increase energy efficiency as well. Okay, and also I wanted to just give you a sneak peek here. So if you're selected to participate, then we will ask you for more information about your library site, obviously, so that we can really make sure those energy upgrade recommendations are helpful. So this is an example of some of the information that we would ask for if you are selected to participate. We didn't want to make you guys provide all of this up front just when you're applying, because we know that this takes a little bit of work to get. But as a note, as you're thinking about your team, as you're thinking about your local government lead, keep this information in mind because you will need to provide this if you are selected to participate. Okay, so section 2 and 3, again, is just the narrative sections. There's 3 questions total. And first is the project need. So we're going to ask you to describe the communities that are going to be served and how they'll benefit from this CRC. So we're also going to ask you to outline the goals that you've developed with your CRC team for that site. And so when we say goals, what we really mean are, like, what are the resilience related needs of the communities that you plan to serve? So obviously communities have lots of different needs, but what are the resilience related needs that you plan to meet or to address with the CRC at this site? And then when will your CRC operate? Is this going to be a CRC that operates on high heat days and during heat events, on low air quality days? Is it going to operate? What is going to need to operate when there's a PSPS? So when will it operate? And then also what resources will it provide when it's operating? Okay, and then the final section and final question is around engagement and support. And that's where we would ask you to provide a description of the process you engaged in to develop your goals. This is where you would really speak to, how your library's community needs assessment informed your goal development process, if it did. Again, not required, but just if it did. And then really here, what we want to do is we want to understand how you approach this engagement and why. And really what we're doing in terms of the pre-application support that we're about to talk about is we want to provide guidance for these conversations. And we want you to feel supported in going out and trying to gather this information in a really kind of thoughtful and effective way. Okay, so here's the process. It's pretty straightforward. Applications should be complete, and you should complete the application and submit it via email to myself, to alekaseville@bayareametro.gov by 5 p.m. on September 30th. So please, please, please do not send these in late because I really don't want to have to not accept any of them. You will have put in some work here, so definitely please abide by that timeline and that date because we won't accept any late applications. If you also just need to include that subject line, Resilient Libraries Network Pilot Application, so that I don't miss it. So that's that. And now I want to introduce you to some of the great partners that we've been working with. And we're really lucky to have their insights and guidance on this pilot project. So we're going to start off with Rachel Jacobson. Rachel is the Deputy Director at the American Society of Adaptation Professionals, ASAP, and she's going to talk a little bit about their role and the support they're providing. And then we'll hand it over to Carolyn Ives, who is the staff at the Bay Area Climate Adaptation Network, BayCan, which I know many of you are members of. So go for it, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Aleka. As Aleka said, my name is Rachel Jacobson. I'm the Deputy Director at American Society of Adaptation Professionals. I use she, her pronouns, and I am located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is lands of the Anishinaabe and Wyandot peoples. And let me tell you a little bit about ASAP, why we're so excited to be supporting the Resilient Libraries Network Initiative, and just a little bit more detail on the types of support that we'll be providing. And then, of course, really happy to answer any questions during the Q&A. So here at ASAP, we connect and support climate change adaptation and climate resilience professionals to better address climate change impacts. ASAP members are building climate resilience for communities, ecosystems, and economies across North America. And at ASAP, we help build their capacity by strengthening their professional networks, providing spaces for folks to exchange best practices and practical advice. And then we're helping to accelerate innovation. And all of this is really leading to a more equitable and effective climate adaptation practice and adaptation field writ large. So in our network, we have about 1,000 individuals and 50 organizations, mostly concentrated in the US and Canada. And we have over 10% of our membership is in California. So a great concentration of folks in California, including many, many in the Bay Area. I've seen some members, ASAP members on the line today, and it's really exciting to be here with you all. And we have folks in all different sectors, public sector, for-profit companies, nonprofit organizations, academia, and really a large amount of folks who are working directly within local governments or as technical assistance providers to local governments. So a really great match in terms of the interest and expertise in our network with the goals of this initiative. And we're just really excited to be working with BayREN to support the Resilient Libraries Network initiative. We believe it's a critical moment in climate adaptation for many reasons, but we have this kind of unprecedented influx of public funds, and we want to help support equitable and effective allocation of those funds and use of those funds. This is happening across the US, but really acutely in California in a wonderful, wonderful way. And then, of course, with increasing climate impacts, we're seeing greater political and public will to take action. And community resilience centers are really an incredible model for that. That's squarely at the intersection of climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation, and with the opportunity to put people and communities most affected by climate impacts first. And that really speaks to everything that we hold dear in ASAP. And so this is a great opportunity to both support the program by bringing national level best practices to bear on program design, on pre-application support, and program implementation. But even more importantly, well, not more importantly, but as equally important for us is to learn from what's happening in California and in the Bay Area and extend that work out to other places that can benefit from the leadership that you all are showing on the ground in your communities, as well as BayREN, regional government entities, and the state as a whole. So I'll talk about two types of two types of ways that we're supporting the initiative. So with pre-application support, today I'll be giving an equitable community engagement training immediately following this workshop. And I think if you haven't signed up for that yet, you can still sign up for it. So maybe the link will be going around in the chat. But at the training, we'll be together for about 90 minutes after we take a quick 15-minute break when we end here. And at that training, you'll learn to identify a range of potential functions that community resilience centers can serve. You'll learn how you can change your engagement approach to better incorporate key principles for equitable community engagement. You'll gain some insights on how to develop prompting questions that can guide goal development discussions for your community resilience centers. We'll practice some skills together that can be used in the context of conversations with community members. And then everyone, including folks who attend the training, but other folks that are here at the application workshop as well, will receive some additional resources to support developing CRC goals. We have a pre-engagement planning worksheet and a community conversations guide available to everyone to use, again, whether you attend the training or not. If you are going to go out and do community engagement on your own in the context of application development, you can use those resources as sort of self-guided worksheets, inspiration, what have you, as you're engaging in those conversations. They're available to download on the pre-application support webpage, and I imagine a link to them may be going around in the chat here as well. And then finally, later on in the program, once folks have started to receive their recommendations for energy upgrades, we're going to be recruiting ASAP members to provide funding and finance recommendations for implementing those recommendations. And we're really excited to continue supporting the program in this way. As Aleka mentioned, BayREN is really committed to ensuring that these recommendations don't just sit on a shelf, but actually get implemented. And so hopefully this support will be really valuable in that regard. So these will be folks with subject matter expertise on climate resilience funding and finance in California. And the recommendations that folks will be able to receive from these experts will include both specific funding opportunities, innovative funding and financing ideas, and then recommendations for designing your community resilience center in a way that makes it ready to receive funding and finance. ASAP has put together, along with our partners, Climate Resilience Consulting, a toolkit on the 10 characteristics of ready to fund resilience projects. So we'll be drawing from that to help, again, make sure that those recommendations are truly actionable, not just the energy recommendations, but even the funding and finance recommendations. So we really are all about action here. And again, just want to say thank you so much to BayREN for the opportunity to support the program. And I think with that, I am going to turn it over to Carolyn, or perhaps Aleka first to introduce her.
Go for it, Carolyn.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry. It was my first time talking on the phone, so I wasn't sure if we worked that out. But thank you, Aleka, and thank you, Rachel, for describing the amazing role that ASAP is playing in this program. Again, my name is Carolyn Yves. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm staff at the Bay Area Climate Adaptation Network, which is a collaborative network of local government staff and partners, including regional agencies, special districts, and community-based organizations, working to help the Bay Area respond effectively and equitably to the impacts of climate change on human health, infrastructure, and natural systems. One of the flagship programs of the BayCan network is the equity program, and one of the key goals that we found our members supporting this year is the development of partnerships between community-based organizations and local jurisdictions, moving beyond just best practices around equitable adaptation, but actually moving towards partnership to advance projects. And we see that this pilot project is one example that we really are keen on supporting that is in line with that goal. Our role for this project is in the application process to support applicants to community partners. So if you're a local jurisdiction, you're a BayCan member, whether or not you've identified existing community partners or would like to be introduced, or if you already have those connections and just want BayCan to facilitate a conversation with those community partners, that is something that we can provide. We can also connect with other BayCan members in your jurisdiction. So if you are a county and want to coordinate applications or at least understand the alignment between applications between a city in your county or a city in another city in the same county, we can also host one meeting together collectively to kind of discuss the goals, really supporting conversation around the goals of what a CRC can provide, helping to address that piece of the application that Aleka spoke to about really strong applications describing with community partners input, what services the CRC would provide during operation. So if you are not a BayCan member, we really encourage you to check us out. We provide lots of services that help with capacities like this that is being described. And you can reach me. I'll put my email in the chat, Carolyn@BayCanAdapt.org, and we can either direct you to information about joining the network or facilitate some of these conversations. And thank you so much, Aleka, and to the BayREN team for inviting us to be a part of this process.
Great. Thanks so much, Carolyn. So as you guys can see, we're very lucky to have both Carolyn and Rachel on our team on this one. So I'm really excited to provide those pieces of support from BayCan and from ASAP. All right, so the pre-application support period, again, as I mentioned, and let's see, sorry guys, start my video here. There we go. Pre-application support period is basically today through September 30th when the applications are due. So again, the conversations that Rachel and Carolyn are supporting through both that on-the-ground facilitation if you're a BayCan member, but also if you're not a BayCan member or you don't want to take them up on that, there's also guidance materials that have been developed by Rachel and her team at ASAP. Those are available to everyone, so you can use those materials, but these are really meant to support your work on those narrative questions for Section 2 and Section 3. So that's the idea of that pre-application support. As Carolyn mentioned, BayCan can provide, that limited amount of facilitation. So we'll talk a little bit about how to take them up on that. And then again, you have the access to those guidance materials from ASAP. So in terms of those logistics and how to take advantage of all these great offerings, if you're a BayCan member and you'd like that facilitation support, you can contact Carolyn directly, but you do need to do that before July 15th. And again, BayCan's going to work with you to figure out, they have limited capacity, but definitely can work with you to figure out if there's multiple jurisdictions in your county that want to talk about this. That might even be a great way to think about your goals and to think about how you want to coordinate with other folks around you. And then again, those guidance materials are available on our website, and we'll make sure to drop those links in the chat as well. So I did want to also mention that as part of the pre-application support and part of the pilot overall, BayCan is also providing up to $1,800 in funding for up to 9 jurisdictions to support this equitable community engagement. So we really believe that if you can compensate community members and others to join these conversations, that is wonderful and it's encouraged. This is, of course, first come, first served, but we want to make sure that you're really thoughtful and intentional about requesting this funding. So essentially, to reserve up to $200 in funding to compensate community members, you can contact Rachel directly and indicate the person in your organization, or the person or organization, excuse me, that you'd like to compensate and the estimated date of the meeting that you'll invite them to. So you can have that collaboration with Rachel to really kind of reserve that funding. Our recommendation is that you don't pay anybody less than $100 an hour to participate in these conversations, but really, you can have up to $200 and it's really up to you to decide how you want to use that. So what we're hoping is that this helps by supporting about 2 different community members to engage in those conversations with you. But we want to provide this with, a little bit of flexibility so that you can do what you need to do with it. So yes, I have Rachel's email here. Again, please do be thoughtful about this before you jump to reserve it. You want to make sure that you have an idea in your mind of who you want to compensate and when that meeting might take place. But then you can contact Rachel. Once you do have that meeting and that person or people participate, then you're going to need to provide, or they can provide directly to ASAP, their name and their physical address, and ASAP will actually just send them a physical check to reimburse them for their time. So we can answer additional questions about this in the Q&A, but that is there as well to support this engagement for you guys. All right, with that, let's do some Q&A. And so I see we already have, I'm going to just escape here. There we go. Okay. I know we already have a bunch of great questions in the Q&A, so thank you guys again for doing that. But what I'd like to do, our plan was anyway, to just start with some verbal questions, because we thought if we could get some of those answered that way, that might be helpful. So if you do have a question, I think Tiara and Len, folks can raise their hands, correct? So if you do have a question and you want to raise your hand, then let's see. We can unmute you and call on you, I believe. And otherwise, we will just go with the Q&A. So let me just start off with the Q&A and we'll go from there, and then we will, I'll answer these live as much as I can, or I'll move to other folks, and then we'll see if folks want to raise their hands and answer or ask anything verbally. Okay, so we have a first question about whether or not special district libraries or JPA libraries can participate. Okay, thank you, Len. No hands, that's surprising. Okay, special district libraries or JPA libraries to participate. So Jenny, I know you're on the line, and Karen, if you want to note this, it does need to be a city or county. Obviously, you can absolutely participate, but for the local government lead, we need to have that be a city or a county employee. So I think what we're hoping, and thank you, Karen, for typing that in as well, what we're hoping is that that really inspires collaboration. And Frontier team, can you please elevate Jenny when you have a chance so that she can respond? So we're hoping that this gives you the opportunity to really collaborate and figure out, again, that local government lead is the primary point of contact, but obviously we're encouraging, teams to participate. So Jenny or Karen, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just put in the chat that a special district or JPA can work as long as there's a local government lead, as you said, Aleka. So,
okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Michael Shane's question of what are potential funding sources for projects that are already designed but not installed? And I am going to ask for clarification on that question, or maybe I am missing something. So what are potential funding sources for projects that are already designed but not installed? Michael, or can we unmute Michael to provide some clarification? If you're okay with that. And if not, we can come back to that and make sure to include it in the FAQ.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. We have a public library that's already designed to remove heat-only system and install air conditioning / heat systems. The library is regularly shutting down to overheat, so we're closing libraries down. My question really specifically, we have design, we have engineering, we have permitting. We're trying to get this thing funded.
I see. It's funding to actually build that new system.
Correct.
Okay. So in terms, I think for the pilot itself, what we want to do again is to support the development of, CRCs in library sites where communities need them most. So I think it would be really kind of up to you guys to look at that application and see if the pilot is the best fit for that. And then, the idea is really that once we understand what you'd like to do with the site in terms of meeting those resilience needs, again, do you need to have backup power? Do you need to have cooling? Do you need to have access to clean air? Then we can provide recommendations for both upgrades and the funding. So we're going to be looking at grant funding. We're going to be potentially looking at financing opportunities. As you know, though, it's going to be really dependent upon, just the type of upgrades that you are looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's, I understand what the direction that your organization is in. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks for the question. All right, and I see Juliana has a great comment. So Juliana is joining us from the California State Library, which I was very excited to learn about as a sustainability layperson and not a library expert. So Juliana is wonderful. She's joining us here today and noting that she thinks libraries will ask if more than one site per library jurisdiction can apply. So that is a great question. And the answer is yes. So we're saying, please go ahead and apply if you think that your library site is, an ideal location for a CRC, please do apply. I think what we're trying to do as well is to really encourage coordination, cross-jurisdictional coordination as well. So if you know that there are other sites in your county that are also applying, I would definitely try and reach out, talk to them. If you're BayCan members, use that support to try and coordinate and see, who's doing what. I think this, again, we're trying to provide a platform for you guys to have those conversations and really kind of understand what are the resilience need in not only your local community, but kind of in the wider community, and how can you build on that and leverage resources that are already there. So definitely the answer is yes, but we do encourage that coordination and that investigation, especially of other efforts in your jurisdiction. All right. Great. So Madeline, will that ask if the library is in design phase and not yet built, does it qualify? Great question. I think it sounds like it was just answered, but I will say, and maybe Karen, do you want to speak to this directly? Or I can do it as well.
Sure. So just again, to mention that, I mean, this project, this pilot does not provide funding for implementation, and provides technical support. So that can involve technical support during the design phase, as well as, if something's not designed, but you'll need to decide whether it's the best fit. This pilot is the best fit for your project. So Lucky, you might want to add more to that, but.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And I think, well, we noted too in the application, what we're really looking for, we want to support CRC sites that are really intending and committed to implementing these upgrades in the near term, like 3 to 5 years. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind is as you're kind of putting yourselves in our shoes to figure out where this support can be most beneficial in the near term, to just think about that piece as well. And again, just keep in mind that, pending CPUC approval, we're really hoping that this is a kind of a small start, a small narrowly focused start to really better understanding how we can design future energy support for resilience efforts. So just to keep that in mind too. Okay. And then I see here, this is a great question. So if the building already has some solar and batteries, indoor batteries, is that a disadvantage or an advantage in being selected? And if advantage, was that addressing equity? And then along these lines, sorry, things are moving. Along these lines, do you have the criteria for selection available? So all of what I went through today, the slides will be available to you. This recording is available to you. And I really kind of went through the application word by word. So it's all in there, anything about the criteria to answer that question. I think in terms of the solar and the batteries, what we're trying to do is to, again, understand which of these buildings are the best candidates for energy upgrades. And we're also really looking to improve buildings that need it most. So I will say that I don't think it's a complete and total disadvantage, especially if part of your goals are to, let's say you have solar and part of your goals are to then eventually develop a battery backup system to go along with that solar to provide resources during, power outages. I think it's really going to be case by case, but we are looking to improve buildings that need it most. And we're also looking to, serve communities that need it most. So I hope that helps to answer that question. And really that us asking for that information is to get a better idea of how the building is situated, what it looks like now, so that we can help, kind of figure out, how these buildings line up and which ones are most in need of this support.
I'll just add on to that,
Yeah,
Aleka, too, that I believe as part of that, we're asking a little bit about like the age of the solar, because we found with working on some other projects that like an older solar PV system sometimes, you know, isn't working the way it's supposed to. So in this case, it really depends on the specifics of the building and the project, what you're looking to do, how, you know, what's already in place. And as Aleka said, how we can, you know, whether this project can really help to improve it.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, that's great nuance to add. All right. So I see a question from Crystal about any discussion with the California State Library about how participation in this program could impact application for infrastructure grants available through the State Library. And thank you, Juliana, already typed in an answer about following up with the Building Forward folks. Again, you know, what we tried to do ahead of developing this program was really get input from California State Library and better understanding of their future funding opportunities and kind of what they're focused on. So we do intend to continue to coordinate with California State Library and others as we move forward. And I don't know, Juliana, do you want to add anything to that? I don't know if we can unmute Juliana Robbins, if possible. Put her on the spot.
Okay, I think I am unmuted. If okay, great. So hi everyone. Thanks so much for being here and thanks for asking me to join. I'm learning more about this project as it evolves also. So after the meeting today, I'll be following up with the Building Forward Infrastructure Grant folks over at the State Library, keeping them in the loop about the updates on this project. Feel free to contact me. I'll put my email into the chat just so everyone has it. And Aleka and I have had conversations on the back end. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you, Juliana. Sorry to put you on the spot. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Crystal. And Crystal has another question, which is wonderful. I love how you think, Crystal. What happens beyond the pilot? Great question. So again, the pilot timeframe of what we're looking for is, again, the pre-application support period is now to September 30th when applications are due. In October, the BayREN selection committee will make those selections and will let people know who has been selected to participate. In November 2022, we'll have that kickoff, and then we'll do the site assessments and the funding and financing recommendations all throughout 2023, and we'll wrap up that piece in 2023 in November. I think, again, we're hoping that the network can continue. It's really going to be dependent upon the participants and what they find valuable about it. But I would hope that that would be either they will have built relationships with each other and can maybe continue to collaborate in that way. Again, this is meant to inform our new public sector program, and we will be waiting for approval from the CPUC to see A, if they've approved it, B, if they need us to revise it at all, C, like kind of how we're going to roll that out. But that business plan covers 2024 through 2031. So we are hoping that this can inform those efforts if they are approved, and that we can figure out how to really expand this type of technical assistance to include, you know, buildings beyond municipal buildings. So I hope that that helps. We'll also be writing up a little white paper on our lessons learned. And I think one of the really exciting things about having ASAP involved here as well as BayCan, but ASAP is nationwide. And so, you know, having Rachel involved, having her guidance and her insight here, not only are we bringing kind of national best practices to this pilot, that's really our intention, but also Rachel's going to be able to communicate what we've done, you know, beyond the Bay Area as well. So I think there's lots of different, you know, opportunities to share what we've learned. And it is a pilot. We're here to learn. We're here to test things out and see what works best and then adjust as we go, which we think is really the best way to do adaptation planning in general. So hope that answers that. And now I'm going to go to Jenny Choi's question about how much funding is available through the pilot. So again, the participants in the pilot are not going to directly receive funding. What you are going to receive is the support of this network, the pre-application support. The honorarium funding is the one piece that would go directly to your community members, but you're going to get that free engineering on-site technical assistance and the matching with the funding and financing experts to really beef up those recommendations for where to find funding to implement those energy upgrades. So that's what that looks like. So you're not, just to clarify, you're not going to get specific funding as a participant, but we are going to provide you with all of those services throughout the pilot period. BayREN has really estimated that, those site assessments can be anywhere from like 20, 25, 30K per site. Again, it's really highly dependent upon each building. And so we've left ourselves, we have enough funding to support at least 10, for up to 10, excuse me. And that's what we're working with and kind of trying to make sure that we can cover. So we won't take on more than we can fund, but that's the range of sort of value of that piece. We're also obviously funding ASAP for their work on this as well. So that's what we've pulled together on that. Jenny, do you want to add anything to that or correct anything?
Nope, sorry, I was trying to respond to some of the questions. So that sounded good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm down to Wendy Boyle's question. So similar to Crystal's, if a library is currently receiving state grant funding for their energy efficiency upgrades, do they still qualify for this grant funding? And then the second question, you mentioned approximately 10. Could you share what the minimum maximum funding? Okay, so hopefully I did that. Any funding restrictions? Funding can also only be allocated to specific types of project activities. Great questions. Okay, we'll start with the first one here. If a library is currently receiving state grant funding for their energy efficiency upgrades, do they still qualify? So there's a space in the section 1 where we ask you to tell us about any recent energy upgrades there. I think that's where you would note kind of what's already happening. And it's not that you are sort of disqualified from applying, but I think definitely keep that in mind. If you already have funding sources to do a few of these upgrades, you already know what these upgrades are, then that doesn't necessarily disqualify you, but you definitely want to let us know that because we wouldn't want to sort of waste our technical assistants' time and kind of trying to tell you what upgrades you need if you already have those going forward, if that makes sense. And then you asked about the approximately 10 and minimum maximum, which we already went over. And then funding restrictions, I think it's really, again, we are funding the technical assistance and the matching with the funding and financing experts, as well as that small amount of honorarium funding. So there aren't any restrictions. The participants will leave with that site assessment report that's going to include your CRC goals. It's going to have those tailored energy upgrade recommendations, and then also tailored funding and financing guidance to see those through. So that's actually what you're going to walk away with. So I hope that answered your question. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so, sorry, I'm trying to get off video, which I can't do. Yeah, I mean, I think Aleka did a good job of explaining that there's only so much funding and we also have limitations on our funding, but the idea with some of our partnerships is to help identify potential funding sources for moving these projects forward. So we don't want it to be just yet another plan, another report. It's really looking at it holistically with who we have partnered with.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, that's a great point to add. Okay. I am looking at a question about who are eligible applicants. For example, could an impacted BIPOC community BIPOC community group initiate and be the lead applicant partnered with the library? So we absolutely are encouraging coordination with community stakeholders. We want you to have a CRC team, but we do need that local government lead, the applicant, to be a city or county employee. And that's really because of where BayREN's funding comes from. So we have funding to support local governments. That being said, we don't want to see an application that just has the city or the county in it without a diverse and community-driven CRC team. So I would say, yes, please, we want everybody to be involved. It's just a matter of that lead, the local government lead, and that our primary point of contact is a city or county employee because of the way our funding is structured. Jenny, sorry, I put you on the spot again. Does that cover it? Anything else to add there?
Nope, sorry, I'm having a hard time unmuting.
Okay, all good. All right. Another great question. What does success look like for this pilot? How much funding can the library, how much funding can the library secure beyond the technical assistance? Great question. So I think that's another thing that we would encourage you guys to think about as you're considering applying and looking through the application. You know that by participating, you are going to walk away with tailored on-site technical assistance that talks about energy upgrade recommendations that are based on whatever you decide your CRC goals are. And you're also going to walk away with tailored funding and financing recommendations to implement those upgrades. So that is what you will walk away with, really, in terms, and what we want to do is we really want to support applicants who are committed and have every intention of implementing at least some of those upgrades in the near future. So for us, success really looks like people taking that information and running with it and going after some of those funding resources and making these things happen. For you guys, I think you should also be thinking about what that looks like for you, and making sure that as you're building your CRC team, or at least what I would do, as you're building your CRC team, thinking about what support are you going to need to implement some of those funding and financing recommendations, to go after some of that, what kind of capacity might you need, and that's what we'll be talking through. So I think important to note here, if you have one sustainability staff person that's working on this initiative and you really don't have a big office or a big team, we're not going to tell you to go after a massive grant that's going to take a lot of reporting and things like that, where those funding and financing recommendations will be tailored to your capacity, and they'll be limited in that way as well, right? We're going to tell you to go after the things that are realistic for you, because we know what that's like when you get recommendations to go after a massive grant that might not be the best fit for your community. So I hope that helps in terms of success. We know for us, success is really learning from this, building on the enthusiasm, on all the hard work that's already been done on this, looking to national best practices, and including that information here, and really hopefully supporting you all in thinking through how to move these forward and what to do on those next steps. So I hope that recommends. And then how much funding the library can secure beyond the TA. So again, how much funding is really up to you guys. I think, again, as we hear more from the CPUC and as we think through our new program, we'll also be thinking about that as well, but we just need to wait and see what gets approved and what we can do on that front. Okay. Another question, have you done a preliminary survey to determine interest and number of potential applicants? So again, this whole pilot ideas really came from many of the local government staff that we reached out to as we were developing our business plan for BayREN late last year. We did not ask about community resilience centers or resilience hubs, but they kept coming up as a key priority. So after that, we then reached out to those same staff that we work with, typically with BayREN, and said, hey, can we talk about this a little bit more? What exactly do your needs look like? And that information we use to inform the new public sector program that we put into our business plan. And then we really stepped back and said, okay, between now and 2024, what could BayREN do with our current funding to help support this work in the near term? And that's where this pilot idea came from. So I think it definitely was, we tried to have it be as informed as possible, both by potential partners, as well as the potential applicants. And we did do a survey to potential applicants to ask about, what types of things would be barriers to participate. So those were primarily the local governments, again, that BayREN is funded to serve, and that local government staff that attended those conversations. So I hope that helps. And then finally, who will be providing the funding and financing advisement? And will that include cost estimates of the CRC project as imagined, including estimates for energy or solar upgrades and hard construction? Fantastic question. Thank you for bringing this up. I totally forgot to mention in the energy upgrade for the technical assistance, we will also be providing cost estimates as much as possible for those energy upgrades. So that's the BayREN technical assistance piece. And then again, we're working with Rachel Jacobson and her team at the American Society of Adaptation Professionals, ASAP. They have a Ready to Fund Resilience initiative, and they've already engaged a lot of different resilience and funding and finance experts nationwide. They're going to be tapping that team to match folks in this pilot with those experts to develop those tailored materials. So it's really driven and led by ASAP, but then BayREN, our team, is going to be helping to pull all that guidance together so that you guys can walk away with that report that has both the energy upgrade recommendations and the funding recommendations. Okay, so I hope that, I think I got that. Okay, and another question here. Oops, that just disappeared. Oh wait, here it is. How does the MTC and ASAP definitions of targeted or indicators for impacted communities differ from what many of us are used to using as a standard definition, such as Cal screen or even EPA EJ screen? Great question. So again, we're providing the MTC and ASAP definitions as frameworks. We are not requiring that the library sites need to be located in an equity priority community as designated by MTC, nor are we requiring that they be located in a DAC, a disadvantaged community, as designated by Cal screen. So what we're trying to do is say, here are frameworks, and specifically regional framework from MTC that talks about the demographic factors that tend to make up frontline communities, but we are looking to you all to tell us, based on your knowledge of climate impacts, community needs, the location, you get to tell us, why you think this CRC is needed in this community and what it should provide. So I hope that helps to answer that question. Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me. And Juliana mentions that they're using Cal screen as a tool also for the Sustainable California Libraries program too, which is great. So yes, there's many frameworks out there. We very intentionally tried to make this a little bit more open. So to not require that any of these library sites be located in an equity priority community or a DAC, but instead to provide those frameworks and give you guys the space to help us understand why you think you're serving frontline communities and what you think those needs are. Jenny, anybody else want to add to that? Or Rachel, Carolyn, I should have asked earlier.
Hey, this is Rachel. Yeah, just really briefly, I want to point out that, one of the reasons why we're keeping this open is because we know that, there are some issues with the way that existing tools, the scale of the data, and there can be hidden pockets of vulnerability, hidden pockets of risk that don't show up on these tools. And so in addition to wanting to hear from the ground up, based on your own experience, who is in your community and who needs the services that a CRC can provide, we also want to kind of get ahead of that scale issue, because we know that there are blocks or there are neighborhoods, or there are little pockets within, almost every community that probably would qualify on this screen if the scale was different. And so that's another thing that we're trying to speak to.
Thank you, Rachel. Exactly. Rachel and I have had lots of conversations about this, and that's exactly it. So thank you for adding that. Okay, so again, we really want you and encourage you to, we're going to try and summarize the questions that were asked here into that FAQ that we'll post in mid-July. We really encourage you to send questions. You can send them directly to me, to my email, and we can drop my email again in the chat. It's on these slides as well. Here, let me share my screen here. Send those additional questions my way by July 15th, and we'll make sure that they're included in that FAQ so that they can benefit everyone. So in terms of wrap up and next steps here, again, just really want to thank you all for all the great questions and for joining us today. I know this was a lot of information, so we're trying to make everything really as accessible as possible, but let us know if you have any problems. Again, we're excited to do our equitable community engagement training for local government staff, which is starting today at 10:30 to noon. Right after this, we'll take a quick break and then we'll hop back on. The training registration link, hopefully we can drop that into the chat if possible. Thank you to whoever's doing that. Perfect, thank you. So that's there. If you haven't registered and you want to join, please go ahead and do so. We'd love to have you. But also I will mention that the recording and the slides will be posted along with the materials that are also posted. The applications can be downloaded from BayREN's website. So we can drop that link in there as well. You can download the application directly there. Again, it's a Word document. We're hoping to make that, thank you for our little chat elves. We're trying to make that as accessible as possible too. It's just a Word document. You can add in your narrative responses and your answers to the other questions, and then just email that and send it back to me by September 30th. Oh, sorry. See. And again, you can include that subject line, Resilient Libraries Network application, and my email is there and also on the application and on all those materials. So thank you so much for everyone for attending. Here is the link. Oh, again, recordings of the workshop will be posted as well. You can send me additional questions. And then here is the link to where all this information is on our website. But we really appreciate your time. We're excited to launch this with all of you. So we definitely encourage you, talk to your cities, talk to your counties, talk to your community members, and have fun having these conversations and really digging in. And then we welcome all of your applications by September 30th. All right. Thank you so much.